Hello and welcome back to the She Is Me special event, a gathering of healers. This is day 3, and our final speaker of the conference is Kristi Lee Serafin. Kristi, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. I'm so glad to be here.
I'm so glad you're here too. Kristi's a new member of the She Is Me platform, so please welcome her with open arms. And Kristi, I'm going to leave it to you now.
Great. All right. Well, welcome. I am so glad I'm here with you today. Let's talk about intuition. Okay, so this is a topic that I love. That has been something that I have worked at for a big portion of my life, but it didn't just come, didn't just show up. So you may have heard the stories of, my grandmother was, a medicine woman, a seer, a witch, whatever it was, and an intuitive, and her mother and her mother, and so on, right? Well, that was never the story that I heard, right? Or maybe you heard the story of when I was a child. I would see things, or I would have the imaginary friend, or I would know things, and maybe your parents encouraged it, or maybe they didn't encourage it, and they wanted you to shut it down, and don't do that around people, right? It's dangerous. We don't talk like that here. Or possibly you heard of the stories of there was like that lightning bolt moment where you're out in nature and all of a sudden it was like the birds come out and the sky opens up and your intuition like turns on and it's just like, oh my gosh, like, wah! And or maybe something, kind of traumatic happened and then your intuition turned on. Well, those are all amazing stories, but they weren't my story. My story, like my intuition I don't remember it as a child being lit up. I don't remember seeing things or having the imaginary friends and I didn't have that aha moment and it was all clarity. Like that wasn't my path. As much as I would have loved it to be my path, that's not where I learned to access my intuition. And so I started reading these books in my late teens, my early 20s, and they were by Lynn V. Andrews. Not the Lynn Andrews that has a fiction that locks the kids up in attics, but the Lynn V. Andrews, who is the author of the Medicine Woman series. And that was like my first real introduction to this kind of intuitive, shamanic, healing kind of work. And I loved it. I was just like, oh my gosh, like, where's my shaman healers that are going to come help me? Like, they're going to choose me, or I'm going to get that pull to go find them. Like, where does that come in? And again, never really panned out for me. But I was interested and I was seeking and I was looking. And the more I looked, I didn't get too far. My greatest like gift at the time to access my intuition was I remember like we were like trying to look at auras one time. I don't know if it was a gift, and we're trying to look at auras, and my head, I'm like trying so hard to like see something, and all I got was like this big headache, and I was super tired. I'm like, oh my gosh, this doesn't work for me. Now I think everybody has that instinctual gut intuitive feeling like this doesn't feel right. I need to change it. Like something's like, I need to get out of the situation. I think everybody has that, but that intuitive psychic ability, I wanted it and I just couldn't access it. So I continued to look. I was, in my mid-20s, I'm having babies, like, what is my work? And massage came up a lot, but I was like, I enjoy that one-on-one with people. But the fact was, I'm like, I'm just going to wear out with massage. Like, that's just physically exhausting. Like, what else can I do? And then I remember seeing this herbalist school and, in Northern California, and that was supposed to be really good. I'm like, how about that? But the fact was, I wasn't like a big gardener in the dirt kind of girl. I didn't like cooking in the kitchen, right? Those kind of go together. So I'm like, that's not it. And so I continued to seek. what is my thing? And then one day, a friend of mine's like, Kristi, I just learned this healing modality. I need to do it on you. I need to show you what this is about. And I'm just like, oh yeah, count me in, right? Like, practice on me. So we met up and she learned this healing modality. Her family had gone to like a family counselor, and the counselor did this modality on her, and they left there and they really liked it, and the husband liked it, and she could get training on it, and he's like, go for it. And so she did. And that modality was called Body Talk Systems. So we meet and she does a session on me, and what feels like 5-10 minutes, that was probably more like an hour. I was just blown away. I was like, that was amazing. Like, how did you know that stuff? How'd you get there? Oh my gosh, like it was so magical to me, right? Like it was so beyond like where I was, but I was just like, I love that. And so we parted, and I had just given birth to my 4th child, 4 kids under 10, and I had to go get them, and we went to like a park and we walked around, and my life was pretty chaotic at the time. Not all of our children like to play nice with everybody else, right? Some are harder than others. And so we went to the park afterwards, and it was just like the most peaceful day ever. And I was like, what's happening? Not just me peaceful, they're peaceful. Like everybody just got along, and it just worked. And then the next day came and they were still peaceful. And the next day, and I'm like, what is happening here? Like, what did you do to me? Like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So she lived in a different state than I did, and she visited again. And I'm like, I need another session. Like I got to experience that again. This time I need you to say it out loud. I need to hear everything you're saying, how you got there, how it's like happening. Like I'm blown away. So she does another session on me, and she leaves, and I'm just like, it felt like my filing cabinet that has like files like everywhere, and it's all crowded and disorganized. Like somebody came in and cleared all the files and put them all in order for me. I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm hooked. I got to do this. Like I have to do this. So I signed up for my first Body Talk course, and it was still months out, but this was the thing, right? And in the meantime, she sends me this book on energy medicine, and I was just like, that's the thing. This is the book that I've been waiting for all my life, that I didn't know I was waiting for, but this was the thing, this energy medicine. So eventually I go and I take my first Body Talk course, and I just remember I was just thinking back to it a couple days ago, and just like, oh, how magical it felt. This healing modality, this energy medicine, and these tools and techniques that you can use to help people in their life. Like, oh, I was lit up. I was in hook, line, and sinker. Like this is my jam here, right? Like I love this. And so this modality isn't just one course and you're done. Like there are different parts to it. So it's a protocol chart, looks like this, and you would have to take different courses for different areas of the chart because it's pretty extensive. And so you would go to a class and you have the instructor, and these are amazing PhDs and doctors of acupuncture and orthopedics and all this stuff. They're just amazing instructors, and they would explain it. And then they would demonstrate on, one of the class participants. And then we would separate into groups and we'd work on each other. And so this is really about this left brain knowledge at the beginning, right? This is Eastern medicine, Western medicine, quantum physics, all put into one place. And you would learn this chart really well. So then it's not like such a clunky thing. Like then you could start bringing in your intuition with it. And they taught you how to move through it. You use kind of like a muscle testing, and you get yes and no's. And, but you're still limited to your questions, right? If you're not asking the right question, you're going to get a no, because of this, is it that? Like it could be like asking 20 questions until you get to the right thing. So then there's that intuition piece. Well, when are those pop-ins going to come, right? I hear people talk about, oh, you're just going to have a drop-in or a pop-in. Like, okay, where's my pop-ins? Where am I going to get the information? Like, I'm waiting, like, give me the hint. And they didn't come. And you would work with other people in the class, and maybe there's like, oh, it's this thing or that thing. And like, again, how do you get that? Like, how do you access that intuition? Like, I wanted it so deeply, right? And it just eluded me. It just did not connect. So eventually somebody told me, like, well, within the Body Talk system, there's a course called Mindscape. And this Mindscape helps you access your intuition. So I'm like, sign me up. Like, I need to get to this class. I need to open my intuition. Like, more than anything, I want this missing piece that I don't have. So I go to this weekend course, and it's all about structure. Well, it's the right and left brain. So we have this feminine right brain that's intuitive and chaotic and just all over the place. And then we give it the left brain, the structure, right? And so together, we want them to work together. So the right brain, feminine intuition has a place, a safe place to open up. And then there's the structure of the left brain that pulls it all in. And then you're using all your five senses. So you're not just using your sense of sight, right? You're using your sense of hearing, feeling, maybe it's smell, maybe it's taste. Like you have all these senses. Maybe it's this knowing that comes through. So you're really playing with all your different senses. And so it was really a lovely class that took you through this whole process to open up your intuition. And in that time, I also learned that I had a cord blocking my third eye. And I was rooming with this girl that was super intuitive already. And she's like, you just have this cord. You just need to remove it. And so I did the little removal of it. And then I went to my last day of court class, and we did this like scanning technique. And so I saw the instructor. She was walking up with her little bowl of names. And when they do that, they work on you, right? And Body Talk, they work on you. So I'm like, oh, she's walking up with her names. So I practice what I learned. I go into my intuition and I invite her in, and she's like, Kristi, you want to help me? And I'm like, yeah. She's like, okay, I'll call on you. And then she goes. And so here's the instructor at the front of the class, and she's telling us about what's going to happen. And she's like, okay, so we're going to call somebody up, and you're going to come to the front of the class, and you're going to demonstrate for the whole class how to do this. And I'm like, what? That's what I just ran in my intuition space for, is to volunteer, to get up in front of people and possibly like not do what I'm supposed to, like not pick up any information. That's great. And she's like, but if you do it, I'm going to offer you a healing session at the end. So I'm like, okay. And of course she pulls the name out, and it's mine, right? So right at the bat, like, this stuff works. Like, it does work. So I got up there in front of the whole class, and wasn't one of my favorite places to be in front of people, but I did the best that I could, and it worked. I did it. Then we separated, we went into groups, and I was picking up information, right? I can intuitively see things, and I had information coming through. So it was beautiful. And then we left this weekend course, and it was just like, now what? Now, here you go. You have the information. Bye-bye. Enjoy. Knock your socks off, practice, do the best you can. So I was fortunate because I had clients that I could work with, right? I could practice on my clients. I didn't necessarily know how I was going to do it or what that may look like, but you just got to try it. So I would invite people into my intuition, and I may see them running around circles, or maybe they come in like a chicken with their head cut off, and I would tell them what I'd see, and they're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Yep, that's me right now. And so it was lovely, but at the same time, it was very like, one foot was like trying to access the intuition, and then the other foot was like trying to connect with my healing modality, right? And so they didn't necessarily blend. They were very separate in how I had worked with them. And then there was information of like, what does this mean? Right? Is this even real? Am I just making it up? Which, that's our imagination. That's what intuition is. Like, yeah, you are making it up. But at the beginning stages, that can be very intimidating. And so I had to really learn to work with what I saw. And sometimes I would just get random stuff coming through. Like, is this just gunk moving through? Is it real? Like, what is it? And typically, if I kept seeing it or it didn't go away, then I knew, like, okay, this is something we need to talk about. But I was often intimidated to say what I saw. I remember one time having a client on my table, And I kept getting a chameleon, like the lizard, a chameleon, but like, what does that mean? Right? So I didn't say anything. I just kind of just saw it, didn't say anything. And finally at the very end, I went ahead and confided in him. I'm like, okay, I keep saying a chameleon. This keeps coming in. And he's just like, oh yeah. What does that mean to you? What does the chameleon mean to you? And he's like, they would call my dad the chameleon. He was the chameleon. And his dad had passed on. It was like, oh. And then he goes and pulls up his pant leg, and from like knee to ankle, he has a tattoo of a chameleon on his leg. Oh, okay. So I waited to the very end. We got like, oh, it makes sense. But what if I would have brought it out sooner? Like, maybe there was a message from his father. Maybe, there could have been so much more, but because I was afraid to share what I saw, it kind of was just like, oh yeah, but it didn't really go anywhere. And so that would happen a lot. So I had to start trusting. Like, I remember one time seeing like the horns, like ram horns on the front of like a car, right? And so I'm like, okay, it keeps coming up. I told my client, she's like in Texas? I'm like, yeah, like in Texas. She's like, oh, I just started working with a personal trainer that's from Texas. Awesome, right? I may have not been able to figure out, but I had to say it for them to go, is this what you mean? Yes. And they know, she knew what I was talking about. So it was really, we see things symbolically, and so that was a really challenging thing because I wasn't a big questioner. I was actually very quiet and shy, and I didn't question things. And so it was, what do I do with this? I got information, now what? And I'd like freeze. And so I had to really work with a friend, and we really practiced our questioning. Is this literal or is this symbolic? And go from there. And she really taught me how to question. Why am I seeing this? Show me more. What do you want me to do with this? Does this mean, is this beneficial for them? Is it non-beneficial? Like, the questioning was a big piece that I was missing, that I had to really start to work with to open up this intuition piece. Yeah, this stuff was coming through, but unless I know how to work with it, it doesn't do me any good. It doesn't help me. It doesn't help my client, right? And so I had to start trusting what I see and sharing that information. And oftentimes our clients know what it means when you share it with them. Like, hey, what does this mean to you? And then I had to start learning my own questions on, what do I do with what I do see, right? And that speeded up the whole process in my healing modality, because then before you know it, the information just comes in. I don't have to ask 20 questions to get to the answer, right? Or to find out all the details of the situation, because now it's coming in quicker. And eventually I started, this path of intuition and then this path of the healing started to kind of blend more and more. And they started to work and they started to weave and progress. And it was just such a beautiful flow once they connected. And it was interesting because some people that would happen better with, and some people it was more very formal. And I think it's this personality, right? And I remember one woman I worked with, she came in and it was like kind of her spiritual journey, but she comes in like this wolf, and we follow this journey of this wolf, and behind every corner there was some kind of sabotage that would happen, right? The cliff would fall on her. She would, land in the water and couldn't swim to get out. And it's just such this beautiful story, this unraveling that would happen. And there was just so much insight, and then we'd shift the energy and change it and move it so it puts you or the client into flow. I remember another client, this is a little bit more recent. She had a father that wasn't in her life. And I brought this up. She's like, yeah, this is that thing that just doesn't go away. Like, and she's having some physical symptoms as well. And they seem to be related. And once we were able to tap in, this father had already passed over, and he shared like why he couldn't be a part of her life, and how her life, how he saw it was better with him without him in it, and just went through the story, and we're able to connect in so deeply to this energy of his and how much he did truly love her. And this is how he felt he was best providing for her, was not being in her life. And I'm in tears, my client's in tears, and we're just like, oh my goodness. But yet you're able to feel this love that came through, and then we're able to just move it and clear it out. And she's just like, oh my gosh, I was finally able to move through this situation, this circumstance, this thing that's been in my life that has weighed heavily on me for so long. It finally was able to release, and she was able to feel peace with the situation. She was able to tap into that feeling of love that he showed in that session, right? She was able to embody it. So she's able to bring it up if she needed to later, or able to just let it go because it was this felt experience that came through and shared what it needed to share with her. So there's so much beauty that can happen with this healing work and the intuition, right? There's a whole story there. So my practice eventually evolved as well. I ended up going into like a psychic store, and I was tired of running the business for a while, and I was like, okay, let's try something else. So I go into the psychic store, and I become a psychic there. And one of the things that the owner said, she's all, oftentimes the healers that come work here, they don't last all that long because they find that, they don't love the psychic aspect of it. And I was like, all right, like, I'm here now. This is where I want to be. Let's do this. And it was an interesting place to work. I want to say that most people don't need more psychic readings. They need healing, is what I witnessed. Oftentimes, people get stuck in stories, and that's what they program in. And oftentimes they need help deprogramming it, moving through it, clearing it, not more of the same story over and over and over. Because a year or two later, you get the same person and they're telling the same story over and over and over, and it hasn't changed in 2 years. And so that's where I would try to get as many people through with the healing so they can move through it. And I'm trying to think of different stories to tell you. There's so many different stories. But what I realized is with these readers, we had numerous readers in this, and we all read differently, right? We're all pulling in intuitive psychic information differently. Some people are just geniuses with the cards, and others are, they just like, once they're in, like, their knowing just flows, and they can just talk on your situation forever. Others, they blend different things. Mine was healing. There's some that are amazing with astrology. But at the end of the day, we're all just reading energy. And so sometimes you would get the readers that would call in, and they would, Sarah with Kristi. And then a little bit later, after they read with you, Sarah with Amanda, Sarah with Jane, they're calling, and they're calling each of the different readers. And sometimes you could hear what was being said in between two particular rooms. And I was listening, and I'm like, they're saying the same thing that I said. They're just saying it slightly different in their own words. And it's because it's energy. We're just reading the energy. So eventually I did leave the store. I left the store during COVID. And so almost 2 years in, and I came back home, and I started my healing work again. And I was happy to be back in that arena with my people. But what I did notice was that I would go online, or I'd be in different groups, and I'd do my sessions, or I'd do like check-ins. And I'm a big feeler. I love to feel. And what opened me up to feeling, believe it or not, was crystals. So I had taken a little down at that store that I worked at. I took a crystal class, and the instructor was passing around crystals to the group and kind of explaining like what the different qualities of the crystal were and how you may feel it. And I remember, and I actually think it was this particular, not this exact crystal, but this particular one, green calcite. And I remember like feeling it. And I remember just like, oh, is this like opening up my chest, like clearing out like my chest? And I'm like blown away. And the instructor's like, uh-huh. I'm like, oh, okay. And then the next crystal comes through, and I'm like, oh, is this like opening up my sinuses? And it's she's like, uh-huh. And she must have been like she's getting it. Like, and all of a sudden these crystals just started opening me up. And I was just like, I can feel this and I can feel that. And oh my goodness. And so I believe crystals are a beautiful way to really tune into that felt sense. And so I would, working at home, I tune into people, and I can tune in and I can describe what's happening and what's going on. And and it's, you know, in any area of your life. And so I'd get people like, I want to do what you do. I want to do that. How do I do that? How do I open up my intuition? How does this work? And so I recently created a course, and we just finished up my first round, or our first round. And it's a lot of what I learned in the different intuition courses I took. So like I said, my intuition just didn't go boom, it's open. I had to learn it at age 38 plus. I started working with my intuition and had to open it up, and I had all the ups and the downs, and now that it's open, what do I do with it? And so it's definitely taken me a process, and I think anybody can learn how to access their intuitive abilities. And so that's what I wanted to teach people, like, you can do this. And they're just like, I don't know. I'm like, you can do this. Like, let's give you some structure. Let's give you a container, and we're gonna start opening you up. You know, it could be any of your senses, right? They start to build. The more you work with your intuition, the more different areas will start to open up for you. And so we just finished up the 6-week course, and after the last week meeting, they worked with partners, and they had to tune in, and they came back and they were just lit up. Like, you could just see, like, they were just like, oh my gosh, I did it. And it was like, yes, you did. And so I'm just so proud of them. It was just such an amazing experience to see them go for like, nope, nothing, to like, oh, I did it. I tuned in. I got information. And so this course is so much more than just receiving intuitive psychic information. There's so much that you can do. There is so much in your own personal life, with relationships, with your business, with your health. Like, you're using all aspects, and you can, it's bringing in new awareness. And I like to work with my guides in my intuition portal. And I'm talking about my masculine and feminine guides. And they are so helpful as to what's going on in your life, right? This aspect of yourself. And they can just this simple practice of like checking in with them, or what do they look like, or how are they showing up for you? And why are they showing up? Like, why is he showing up this way and she's showing up that way? I've noticed recently, in the last few months, my male guide is very small. He's missing teeth. He's like, doesn't want to take up space. It's like and then my feminine comes out, and she's chatting and she's talking, and she's all like, gaudy is the word. She's super gaudy. And I'm just like, oh my goodness. And so I brought them in, and it was like Barbie, like da, 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 da. And then my masculine wasn't talking at all. And I was kind of tuning into astrology. That's kind of what's happening. Like, these women we're becoming so much more forceful, but we're like, we're after our own. Like, we're not paying attention to anybody around us. We're like, the masculine was so small. He like, I don't know what my place is. I don't want to say anything wrong. I don't want to do anything wrong. And he's very small. And then there's this, the feminine is like, blah, 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 and not making any space for him. And so once something changes, I may have new guides that come in, and recently it's just like my masculine guide's like missing all of his teeth. And he's just like, I'm trying to, I'm trying to be here for you. And then I have my gaudy feminine guy that's just like, more. And he's like, I've given you my teeth. Like, what more do you want from me? And so then I have to play with it. Like, how do I work with this masculine and feminine within me so they're balanced, right? We need that structure of the masculine, and we need that feminine, that flow, but how do we bring them together? So this work with intuition, psychic abilities, is a lifelong, it's a lifelong experiment, for me at least. And I've had so much fun in this work. I'm just looking forward to more and more. What can I do with it? How can I play with it? How can I share this with others so that they can open up to their intuition? Because when they do, it puts them into their better flow. They're able to align with life more, right? Sometimes it's just like, how do you know like that it's working, kind of thing. And so oftentimes I'll get clients in, and like healing clients, and I'll take like an intake form, and we'll find out what's going on. And pretty much nothing's working, right? This isn't working, that isn't working, this isn't working, over here's not working, I have this health problem, that health problem, this thing, that thing, relationships, all the things, like stuck. And then as we work together more, they're like, oh my gosh, I was able to go see this person that I've been trying to get into. I didn't even know that was an option. All of a sudden I'm able to go see this particular maybe doctor, or this one girl recently was just like, oh my gosh, I got the job. I got the job after 2 years of trying to get this job. And the person's telling me I'm not qualified and we can't hire you and all this. And she's like, all of a sudden I got the job. I like it has the money, the income that I want. I'm gonna be able to buy the house that I wanted. Like, oh my gosh. And it was just like, that's 3 weeks in. And she was in more of the intuition course. And it's just like, when you become in flow, right? When things start opening up, when doorways start opening up, when things become easier for you, when you're not even thinking about all the block stuff, because all the stuff that you desire is starting to come to you, that's when you're in flow, right? That's when things are shifting. That's when you're like, oh yeah, I'm on the path, right? And so I think that can happen in healing work. I think that can happen when you start working with your intuition in a positive, expansive, growing kind of way. I think there's are ways that you can misuse your intuition, but when you're in alignment and you're working with the highest good, I think that the possibilities become bigger and better and endless. And it's just so much fun. So much fun. So if let's see. So if you're interested in learning more about how to access your intuition, let me know. I am available to answer questions for you at any time, or leave a message. And don't stop believing. You can do it. Okay, I'm going to pull my speaker out here so I can hear you, Lisa. That's all.
There you go. I just said, do you need me to jump in? When people start slowing down a little bit, it's like you might need a little help wrapping up here.
Right on time.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being with us. I am going to make sure that everybody has your contact information when we post all of the edited videos up on the website next week. So they'll be able to contact you if they get you. What a fascinating story, because literally, like you said, most of the speakers in the conference this time were talking about their experiences as a child growing up and seeing and doing, and all of this stuff, and not so much I was fascinated and I just wanted to learn.
Right. So
So
then,
what a great experience, though, for people who might be seeing this and saying, yeah, I want to do this, but I've never, that I know
yeah,
of, had these types of experiences, because we all have the power. We all have it.
absolutely. It's
Yeah.
all,
So
we have that ability. We just need, some of us need to learn.
yeah, some need to learn, and you are amazing. And I, this morning when I kicked off the conference, I actually talked about you and how I first met you in, I guess through another group or somebody. Maybe I got an invitation or something, but I went to one of your sessions, and normally I'm kind of a conscious observer, and I'm not really participating much,
Mhm.
especially if I don't know someone. I kind of have to feel my way through it. And I was like, I'm jumping in on this. I'm going to see what's happening. And you just blew my mind. I mean, there was this amazing insight that you had about, through the Akashic records and some past life stuff that was like, yes, somebody finally can see it and tell me. And it really, that day was really life changing. And I will always, always remember it because that, I think I told you then I was like, I'm still in it. Like, I need to know more. I need to know more. I need to know more. And this number came popping up in front of me. And I was like, I don't know what that is. So I went on the internet and I was like, what is this? And it was 1654 or something like that. And it was like big yellow numbers just flashing in
Pay
front of
attention.
my, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, okay, okay, okay. And I realized it was a witch trial, a Swedish witch trial.
Oh.
And not that I was um, part of it, but I did all this research. It was amazing how I went down this hole and I kept finding all this information. And the man who was the pastor, preacher, priest, or whatever he was, that was sort of condemning all the women, used to threaten the children by holding them under the ice in a lake or putting them in a big pot like this, a big pot, and threatening that he was going to kill them and eat them or cook them and eat them. Okay. And I was like, okay, this is what blew me away. When I was a little girl, I used to have dreams of being stuck under the ice and being in a pot
Mm.
and having someone tell me they were going to cook me and eat me. And what I
You need
realized
to
was
read it here.
it was a
Mm.
memory, it wasn't a dream, right? It was a
Mhm.
memory that kept coming up, coming up, coming up. So
Yes.
fascinating.
Now I'm remembering what you talked about. We were doing
Yeah,
past life clearings. I'm like, all right, well, pick a past life, and now
right,
yes,
right.
yes.
But you didn't tell me about that part. You told me about 7 past lives where I had this energy of, you saw me, like, as a child on the beach looking for my mom, like I was lost, you
Okay.
know?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Holy cow, that's super," that idea of safety and security and, um,
Mm-hmm.
that root chakra stuff, right? Which was
Right. Right.
very, very true for me. So I was blown away and completely fascinated. I'm like, I've got to know her and I've got to get her included in this.
Thank you. I'm so glad you did. I just like to have fun on Wednesdays. We have a Facebook group and Spiritual Lit Sisterhood, and it's just like, what can I come up with? What else is
It
different?
was
Like,
it was right on. I'm telling you, it led me down
yeah.
this amazing path. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So thank you, Christy. This wraps up day 3 of a gathering of healers. And wow, what a 3 days it is. If you if you have registered, you will receive the link to all the videos once they're posted on the website, which will be beginning of next week, and you can watch the conference in its entirety. Um, Thank you again. This was phenomenal, and I hope everyone has enjoyed this session and all of our speakers, and just look look I'm looking forward to the next few events of the year, so they're going to be phenomenal. So thank you, Christy. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for supporting.